back with you another show, an amazing conversation. And today we're going to talk about one of the most important skills that we all as humans need, which is communication. There's always two ways to drive our message forward, which is to communicate it or to write it. So for those of you that would like to learn more around how to become the top 1% communicator in your industry, and of course stand out and ensure that your message is landing in the right ears, so to speak, I have the amazing honor to have Brenden from MasterTalk here today. And Brenden is a master communicator himself, I'm sure, but he's the founder of MasterTalk, and he coaches ambitious executives and entrepreneurs to become top 1% communicators in their industry. He also has a popular YouTube channel called MasterTalk with a goal of providing the free access to communication. And all right, wow, so amazing. And then, of course, Brenden is also all the way connecting with us from Canada to New York. So, Brenden, thanks so much for being here.
Elona, the pleasure's mine. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure and honor to have your wisdom and expertise here today. So let's jump right into the topic. I like to give the audience what they're here for, connect some dots around communication, and how is it that they can become top 1% communicator? What are some of the things that they should keep in mind based on what you know that maybe they don't know?
Yeah, absolutely, Elona. The first step that I would start is when we're trying to master a skill. I think what a lot of people get wrong about communication is there's no clear set of steps. So, example, if we take a microphone and we start interviewing to get people together on the street, and we say, "Hey, I need some advice on how to get healthier. What tips would you give me?" Even somebody who's unhealthy, Elona, will give you the right advice. They'll say, walk every day, eat healthier, maybe join a gym. But in communication, those three steps are not clear to the general public. And that's really what I brought to the industry. And that's really the question I've asked myself is communication is juggling 18 balls at the same time. So now the question becomes, what are the three easiest balls to juggle? So let me give you the first one. I'll throw it back to you, which is the random word exercise. Take any word you want: mouse, phone, camera, building, t shirt, and create a random presentation out of thin air in 60 seconds. This serves two main purposes, Elona. The first one is if you could make sense out of nonsense, you could make sense out of anything. If you can talk about tissue boxes, when you go back into your businesses and the companies that you're leading, you already have expertise in that area. It's going to be a lot easier for you to communicate those ideas, and you get better with small talk as well.
Mm. Well, I love that simple exercise. It's so simple, but also gets your brain to think about, how would I actually package or structure something so that it's clear and the message lands in the right ears and with the right audience. How about in the age of distraction, right? I mean, how important does this become for us to, I guess, clean up our communication skills or practice those and improve those over time so that we can really get the attention of the person that we're talking to? Because this seems to be decreasing every day that goes by.
I'm with you, Alone. And you brought up a fantastic point, right? The idea of distraction. I would argue that's been true with every generation, but definitely with technology. It's not making our life easier for sure. And this is why consistency is so important to the practice routine. Going back to this idea of being a top 1% communicator, people ask me about that a lot. What does that mean, Brendan? And the answer to that question, Alona, is it's really simple. It's just about doing what the other 99% of people aren't willing to do in your industry. So if we take the random word exercise, the exercise itself is not that challenging in context. You take a word, you give a presentation, and you just do it. But there's a couple of problems. Number one, most people listening to this podcast or this interview will never do the exercise once. Second, the people who try it once will only do it once. And number three, only a very small percentage of people listening to this will put it in their calendar every day to practice it and try and get to 100. And that's really the key. The only way to fight against distraction and different ways that society is kind of distracting us from the main focus of a message is really to practice so much in a way that's easy, in a way that's consistent, in a way that's practical, so that you're able to outweigh the distractions that people are throwing at you in life.
Hmm. Well, practice is key, and practice makes progress for sure in anything that we do. And yeah, building those disciplines. And I think always connecting it to that bigger reason why we want to practice a certain skill or improve it, and how does it actually connect to the bigger thing? Because then there's a bigger motivation, there's a bigger drive. And it's not just like one thing that we need to do, but it's really connected to the bigger why we want to do it, and why, how does that actually impact the work we do or the people that we want to serve. Now you got me curious. So, what are some of the things that the 99% uh, of communicators don't do that sets them apart from the 1%?
Absolutely, Alona. So we talked about the random word exercise. That's one piece. And the way I've structured communication learning, so it's easy for people to know what to do next. Let's go to exercise number 2. And that really speaks into your question. Exercise number 2 is called the question drill, Alona. Tell you a quick story. When I was getting started with MasterTalk, one of the big challenges I had that a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs face at the beginning of their journey is how to answer tough questions about your expertise, about your products, about your services. And I had that a lot more heightened because I was only 22 years old when I started coaching C-level executives on how to present. So people would ask me to come on their podcast, and I'd look at them and say, why do you want me on the show? And then I would get on this interview, and then they would ask me really difficult questions. I remember one I got in particular, which was, "Hey, Brenden, where does the fear of communication come from?" And I started panicking, and I looked at the guy and I was like, "I don't know, man. Tokyo? You tell me. Like, Brooklyn? Maybe that's where the fear comes from." So I didn't know the answer. But how did I fix this, Alona? Very simple. Every single day, I answered one question that I thought the world would ask me about my expertise. So first day was, "Hey, Brenden, what's your vision for MasterTalk?" Day 2 is, "What tips do you have for introverts? I'm really scared of public speaking. How can I get better at this?" "Brenden, how do I present better in boardroom presentations? How do I get a board, and how do I get buy-in from that board for different ideas?" But here's the thing, Alona. When I started my career, I didn't know the answer to 80% of these questions. But what's the difference? Is that I did the exercise 1,500 times. If you do one question every single day for 5 minutes for a year, you'll have answered 365 questions about your expertise, and you'll be bulletproof. It's just most people are not willing to go through even question 5.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's all in the simple things, right? And just implementing small actions daily to be able to get to that, the bigger thing. And then confidence lies. And I find that the more you actually start to brainstorm and think about all these different things, the more clarity you also receive as an individual as to why do you actually care about something, and why is it that you are actually answering it this way, and what makes you different and authentic, which is like a daunting question in life and business. Is always like, what makes you different, why are you doing what you're doing? So I think it's all in the small tiny habits that we get to implement. And unless we're calendaring this stuff in, sometimes it's top of mind and out of mind. So I think it's being intentional is really very important. I love the name of is that the name of your company, Master Talk, or in the name of your program? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, absolutely, Alona. So it's the name of not the program, but of the company and of all my social medias. And funny story for those of you who
Mm.
are stuck on a name. I don't know why I get this question a lot sometimes from entrepreneurs. How do you find a name? And the answer is really simple. All I did, I was still a college student when I started Master. This is a long time ago. And I told my friends I wanted to make a YouTube video channel on public speaking, but I didn't want to call it by my name because Brendan Kumarasamy is too hard to spell. Like Brendan, my version of Brendan has two E's in it. No one's gonna be able to find me. So I said, come up with 50 names. So every single one of my best friends, three of them came up with 50 different names for the channel. I came up with 50. We put all 200 on a spreadsheet and we voted on what was the best name. And Master Talk was selected by one of my friends who had came up with it, and it wasn't trademarked. And that's how we found the name in a day.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, that's smart because a lot of the times we overthink a lot of these different business decisions. And I get the name because obviously you want to first make sure that it's available. Because I've also seen the other end where we're building a brand out of a name and it belongs to someone else. That's kind of, that's the thing. But once something comes up, definitely go with that, because intuition is also very powerful. There's a reason why we get stuck with that name, and it's important to us, and it's going to start to attract the right people that resonate with it as well. So, okay, that's cool. So that's kind of the behind the scenes of why you chose name your company MasterTalk. Now, Brenden, I have lots of speakers in my audience, seasoned speakers, speakers that obviously understand, the powerful messages that they want to share with the world and the power of the influence of their messages to be able to serve their clients, grow their businesses, scale at the next level, increase their visibility. Is there certain maybe patterns that you've seen in your work with lots of the people that you've helped over the years, that maybe you can share with us besides what you already have shared with us that can help people with the skill of communication, but also can be things that they kind of can be more intentional around as they're, sharing their messages with the audiences and in the effort of scaling their companies.
Yeah, absolutely, Alona. I think the biggest mistake that a lot of seasoned people make, whether it's speakers or executives, let's assume they already know how to speak pretty well and they're getting great results from it. The mistake is that the way that they're conveying their message is not in comparison to the brand that they admire. Let me give you an example. Let's say we have thought leader A, who's doing pretty well. They're getting paid to speak, they do well financially, they have a few coaching clients. And if I ask them the question, hey, who is the personal brand that you admire the most in the world right now? Let's say they say Gary Vaynerchuk. I go, cool. Let's compare Gary Vaynerchuk's brand on social media to yours. Because it's not just about speaking, it's about all the other facets that he's conveying his ideas across a multitude of different cultures and platforms so that he's able to disseminate his message to an even greater audience base. And often that thought leadership A will say, oh, I'm posting like maybe twice a week on LinkedIn, maybe like once a week on LinkedIn. I haven't really started posting on Instagram. And that's really where I start pointing out the gaps on the entrepreneurial side of the business. Where I'm saying, hey, if you want to have Gary's brand, but you're not even willing to post once a day on LinkedIn and improve the quality and invest. I'm shocked, Alona. I know so many people make $1 million plus who don't even invest $10,000, $20,000 in their own content. I think that's wild,
Yeah.
right? So it's those types of gaps. They'll put $5,000 a month into ads, but they won't put $500 a month or $1,000 a month into organic traffic. So those are a couple of thoughts that come to mind for me on the entrepreneurial side.
Smart. It's so true. It's, I guess, the paths that you're used to. I've seen that also with the bigger companies that I support to scale. Their online presence, right, is lacking because obviously they build their businesses and other ventures, but we got to move in with the time, right? Right now, content is king for sure, and having an online presence is a must. Is no longer something that, okay, maybe if I get around to it, I will do it, because those are the channels to be able to reach the people and keep exposing your brand and keep growing and scaling at the next level for sure. Besides social media and content, what are some other channels for us to be able to improve our thought leadership, but also connect that to the scaling of our business based on our experience,
Yeah,
community experience, I should say?
yeah, for sure, Lona. So I would say besides social media, the big thoughts that come to mind for sure are going to be the podcast interviews, what we're doing right now. So like on the executive side, since we haven't talked too much to that side, the mistake I see with them is, let's say I'm coaching a director of IT and I'm saying, what is your goal? And they're like, my goal is chief technology officer. I go, great. Let's not compare the technical skill set between you and the CTO. Let's just ask yourselves a simple question. How many panel interviews has your CTO done over the last 90 days? Oh, Brenden, I haven't really thought about that question. Okay, great. How many speaking engagements has that person done over the last 6 months? I don't really know. Have you listened to them on one podcast just to hear how they communicate ideas? Not really. And that's really where I see a lot of the gaps on the executive side. So they'll have big career aspirations, but they won't compensate that career aspiration with the communication discipline it takes to get to that level. So that's what I would encourage people to do. If you're an executive right now listening to this podcast and you want to be a C level, you should put it in your calendar this week to listen to your CTO on a podcast, because definitely they did an interview somewhere. You just got to look for it, whether it's on YouTube or on Google. And if you don't find one, find another CTO within the industry that you could learn from. And it's just taking those notes that helps us really internalize how we can get better. And then of course there's giving speaking engagements. And speaking engagements doesn't mean in front of 5, 10,000 people. It just means figuring out the key markets where your clients are at and saying yes to those opportunities. You know what I find a lot at this level, Lona, is that people are getting the opportunities. They're just saying they're too busy to take them. And I think that's a really big mistake for their personal brand.
Mm. Great points, all great points. And I love that you actually talked about the executive niche in the market because, yeah, I think there's definitely lots of opportunities to be able to leverage that. And honestly, it's also about supporting others and sharing their expertise and experience, right? That's kind of the whole idea behind what I do here at the Life School, because I really believe that once you have gained a certain, life wisdom, or you've learned a few things about, whatever you've learned about in your life, it's just I mean, then it becomes about sharing, like how is it that maybe I can share something that might serve somebody else or might support somebody. So and we're always, our growth is always connected to how many other people we've actually created an impact for. So looking at it from different angles, different perspectives, absolutely helps, and also helps with lots of maybe the nervousness or anxiety behind public speaking, or being able to share a message with others. So Brenden, I'm very curious around some of the most meaningful moments that led you to this work that you're doing. What is the purpose behind why you do what you do? How did you get here?
Yeah, for sure, Lona. You know, for me, the purpose of Mass Talk is very simple actually. It's how do we democratize the world's information on communication? You know, when I started Master Talk, it wasn't really about business, honestly. I didn't even know you could charge
Mm.
people money for coaching. I just started making videos in January of 2019 because I felt a lot of the tips that I was sharing with students in college wasn't actually explained in the public for free, because a lot of my colleagues in the space are much older than me, and they're PhDs in communication, which is obviously a great thing. But the challenge behind that is you communicate like an academic professor, so a lot of the content is based in theory, whereas in my case, if I don't get a client result, I starve, to make it easy. So like everything I have to share has to be practical and applicable to the students so that I get word of mouth and the business scales. But for the first 9 months of Master Talk, it's literally just me in my mom's basement making videos. And not because I'm Mother Teresa, Elona, but because I had an amazing job at IBM. I was a consultant there. My goal is to be an executive at the company in the next 5 to 10 years. So I just did it as a hobby. But then over time, doing some personal growth and some different programs I invested in myself, I really realized that Master Talk was my calling, not just some hobby I was doing for fun. And I put a lot more money into it and a lot more time, and became the person I am today.
Well, I love how you married both the academia, but also the practical side of just implementing, falling, getting back up, life experience. It's where magic happens. Is also it's where we connect with others so much more authentically, and our message becomes simple and it lands with the right people. Because also personally felt that gap for the longest time, where okay, theory is great, but now how do we kind of bridge the gap between theory and application? And kind of that's where the results lie. So I love that also you've seen a lot of that gap, and accidentally, purposefully, or maybe not, I mean everything happens like that anyway, you're doing the work that you're doing as well. I would like to end this interview today, Brenden, and thank you so much for everything that you shared, all the amazing work that you're doing out there in the world, with some entrepreneurial advice. Can you maybe think back of three impactful lessons that you've learned as an entrepreneur in helping you, that have helped you grow and scale your company, that maybe you could share with our audience today?
Yeah, for sure, Alona. So I'm happy to share three from a service-based business owner's perspective. The first advice I would give is don't niche down too early in the practice. A lot of people say niche, 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 and I agree, but I think the nuance that is missing from these conversations is when you start providing a service, you don't actually know who your ideal client is because you haven't serviced enough clients. So what I did was really simple when I got started. I DM'd all 3,000 of my followers on LinkedIn. I invited them to a free training. 5 people bought my coaching program, and then I figured out why later. And then through those deep conversations with my clients and asking them when I was really terrible as a coach back then, it was through those insights that I was able to really niche down my practice to Indian IT professionals and women executives. So that's advice number one. Don't niche right away. If you're doing less than $100,000 right now, you're doing less than 300K. Definitely don't niche down right away. Just spray and pray at the beginning, and then see what's working, and then follow those data points. Don't just wait for the data to come to you. That's advice number one. Advice number two is don't be afraid to experiment your ideas. Jeff Bezos says it best, one great idea will pay for thousands of failed experiments. It's really important for us as entrepreneurs to test something. And I hear this BS a lot in entrepreneurship where somebody goes, Elona, Brenden, I don't want to start my business because I want to open a restaurant. Restaurants cost like $5,000 to rent, and then I got to buy the equipment. And then I look at them really confused and I go, why don't you just make the meatloaf at home and message 1,000 of your friends to sell the meatloaf? And if people buy the meatloaf, and give them a free sample, and if people buy it, they want to have you keep delivering meatloaf to them, you probably have a really good meatloaf. If not, you got to tweak the product. And I think a lot of people don't have a bias for action in entrepreneurship because that's the only real way to find the data points that you're looking for. That's number two. And then number three is don't be shy to do volume. A lot of people run ads too early in their businesses. I really like hustling for the business. And the reason I like hustling, and I'd even recommend entrepreneurs take sales calls for $10 products. The reason I'm a big fan of that is because you really want to get into the head of the customer. Like, I'll give you a funny story, Elona, really quick. Executive women make up the vast majority of my practice. But like when I was a college student, I never would have guessed. There's no amount of theory that would have made me say,
Mm.
if you work with VPs, you'll win. So what did I do? I got lucky. A woman executive bought the program. She loved it. She got amazing results. And I just asked her flat out, hey, I don't know why you bought this. Educate me. And they did. And that's how. And then I copy pasted what they said in the messaging in the front end, and the business blew up. That's it.
Yeah, it's so simple, and sometimes it's all about mindset shifts. But yeah, I find that I will also was a rebel in my business because I'm like, let me just go to market, speak to people, because it's supposed to be a collaborative process. You can have a great amount of journey experience and things that you want to package into a business model, but unless you go to market and see who is going to land with, you'll be surprised. I also got surprised. A lot of my messaging obviously comes from the mouths of the people that I'm serving, and I'm always very attentive and curious and observant to be able to listen to that. And also, as you evolve and grow, I think this is an ongoing process that we all can learn from one another from. And we don't need to know the right ways that your business will develop and scale. It's really important to stay open to the process and to also stay open to the needs of the markets that come to you or you go to them, however that works intentionally. But yeah, leverage the power of relationships that are around us. We sometimes underestimate all the people that know us, right? Because I think that's really important. Those are really important wisdom and from your school of life experience that you've gathered as well. Brenden, where is that the audience can at least, I know we started this conversation, amazing, great wisdom that you've shared. Where is it that they can continue this conversation? Where can they find you further?
Yeah, absolutely, Elona. Thanks for having me on the show. This is great. The easiest way to keep in touch is Instagram. Just follow me at my handle, Master Your Talk. Master Your Talk. Your is spelled YOUR. And you just send me a DM and let me know what you thought of the show.
Beautiful. And we also have Brenda's website featured on the screen here, as we love links so that we can. Do you have any important resources or free resources on your site for people to go check it out?
Yeah, absolutely, Elona. So on rockstarcommunicator.com, I actually do a free webinar every 2 weeks. It's a free training. It's live. It's a Zoom call. It's like I'm doing like my 120th. And so if you want to jump on, that's absolutely free. There's no charge. You just jump on it. 5-year-olds come to this call, literally. 50-year-old executives come to this call. Everyone's invited. It's a party. And you can see a lot of the tips that I apply live on a call. And you can learn from those tips.
Well, thank you so much for offering that to our community here. And thank you so much for the service that you do, right? And putting your time and knowledge and expertise into service of others. That's usually what I feel about free resources and ways that we get to add value. So people can grab those quick wins, connect those few dots based on where they are in their journey and experience, and then decide whether they're looking for the further support and the bigger transformation. Well, thank you so much for everything you shared with us today. We actually have reached the end of our interview, and I thank Brenden and all his amazing work. And I want to thank you for always paying attention, sharing the show, supporting it, but also subscribing and reviewing it with your other entrepreneur friends. I appreciate it more than you know, because I know your attention could be anywhere. So the fact that you are watching us so that we can bring more amazing experts just like Brenden. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you next time with another amazing guest and conversation. Bye, everybody. Are you looking for paid TEDx, podcast, and free visibility speaking opportunities with other like-minded audiences to put on your calendar? Speaking is one of those daily operational activities in our service-based businesses so that we can expose the visibility that we have, but also share our message and share our work with new audiences every day. Inside our C-suite community expert program here at the Life School, we have made this very, very simple for you. It's a plug and play system. You just fill out forms and also place speaking opportunities onto your calendar without any overwhelm. We will strategically introduce you to high-level quality connections that will move your mission and vision further faster. And also, you'll get to participate in our own speaking events, magazine, and podcast opportunities that we have here at the Life School with an audience and community of over 30,000 seasoned CEOs. For more information, I would love to invite you to go check out our website at elonaloparicoaching.com/C-suite program. See you.